Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm excited because I've been trying to connect with this doctor for at least 6 months. I think maybe even a bit longer.
Might be more.
It might be more. I finally have him with me for a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to learning more about his event and his practice and his family, and I know he'll have lots of great wisdom to share with you. So welcome, Dr. Paul Reed.
Yes, thank you for having me, Melissa.
So if there are people who don't know what you're doing and where you practice and anything about you, can you just start by giving us a quick sort of summary of who's Dr. Paul and what are you doing these days that's super cool in your life?
Yes, so I am in the Pacific Northwest in Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, BC. I say Vancouver, most people think Canada, so I have to remind them that no, we're a sub-city of Portland, Oregon. Yeah. 22 plus years in. 4 practices now. I had 5, closed one a little while back. We actually just went through an acquisition. So that's something we can maybe talk about later. Mm-hmm. I've been running Chirofest. I think this is year 10, coached for a long time, chiropractors, married almost 27 years, 2 kids. I've been in the game a while. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Now you're still young at heart, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's talk about your practice life. I mean, did you jump into practice with your own practice right at the beginning, or did you start as an associate? And
100% right out of school. Really had a vision. I got my first adjustment when I was 13. Post a wrestling injury, and I knew that when my sports career was done, that I wanted to go back and serve chiropractic in our community with chiropractic. And so I got through undergrad, went straight into chiropractic school, and then opened up. I graduated in December and opened up in August. So 8 months after graduating, opened up practice on myself, and just started rolling right out of the gate.
And then opened up subsequent practices, and then had them all throughout in Oregon, or were they all over the country?
So no, they're all within our same community. So my second one we opened about was exactly 10 years in. We'd lose people across town, and that was the motive. Like, hey, these people are tired of commuting on a consistent, regular basis. Let's put a plan of practice on the other side of town. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. And then 5 years after that, we just like, hey, this is a good model. Let's continue to serve our community. We can only adjust so many spines at a time, right? So the more like-minded docs that we have teaching the same principles, the more impact we're going to have. And so within a year, did 3 more. Mm-hmm. Had one of those for a little over 3 years, and it was in a smaller community. I couldn't get docs to stick there because the small town. So we shut that one down, but still had the other 2. And so we have 4 and like 8 docs working for me and 30 some staff. So
you have certainly learned a few things about hiring the right people, whether they're your team or the chiropractors. What tips do you have for doctors listening in that department?
Man, so for hiring a doc, they really need to align with who you are and your practice beliefs and principles. With today's docs coming out of school, honestly, it doesn't matter what school. A lot of them are lost and don't know who they are and what they want to be. Mm-hmm. When they grow up, they just thought that chiropractic was going to be cool. It's unlike you, at least for myself, I had an experience with chiropractic before I went to chiropractic school. I got inspired, knew that I was called into this army. And today, a lot of them are starting chiropractic school without ever have been adjusted in their life prior to going. And so they just really don't fully understand the power of chiropractic and really the impact we can make. And so they don't have that tick, right? That passion that motivates so many of us. And so navigating and finding those ones that have that, and usually it works out. But unfortunately, they're a dime. They're not very often. So.
And what about with your office team? I mean, you've probably had some great experiences and some people who didn't work out. And this is, again, something that all docs are having great success and struggling with.
Yeah. And I think being super transparent, again, about who you are. Mm-hmm. I think my wife and I have done a great job in addressing problems right as they come up and not waiting and let things fester. And then just being transparent about your goals, your vision, and your purpose and why you're there. Mm-hmm. And they'll weed themselves out if they aren't aligned with you and on the bus. It's best that they get off, because the practice is going to be held down, and without a doubt, and they'll grow and plateau, right? So you'll have a great CA that just physically, mentally, spiritually is going to get to their capacity, and their spirit's going to they're not going to be satisfied and fulfilled anymore. And it's time for them to move on again, because they're putting a capacity block on that practice.
Yeah, I was just saying that to one of my my clients today. You know, they have a team member that's not working out.
Yeah.
It's like you have to really be careful about that relationship, because it could it could ruin your practice. You know,
For sure.
add a lot of
100%
toxicity
can.
to it.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I got so many questions for you.
No, go.
Busy guy, right? Like you've had managing a huge team, multiple practices, and then you start a big event.
Yeah.
My first question is, how do you manage your time, right? Because I mean, a lot of doctors have a practice and a family, and they're struggling to fit in time for their young children, or there's hockey games and their practice.
Yep.
The 2 kids among all that too, and a long, long lasting partnership. So what are some of your ways that you've managed your time effectively?
You know, it's honestly just getting up earlier, staying up later, and then drawing boundaries around activities. So if it's time to leave the office, get home. Now, year one in practice, I was a little more out of balance, right? Because it's, you know, year 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it took to build. You got to grind. It was at the practice early in the morning and stay until things were done. But as you mature and grow and can delegate, right? So that's when you can leverage somebody else's skills to help you be able to reach more goals. And, you know, again, now haven't really practiced for a year with, you know, I'm more managing now. And it's, I was told by a mentor one long time ago, is like, if they can do 80% of the work that you can do, let them do it. And that will allow you to expand and grow and do other things. So that's,
it's like remembering, you know, that there's different seasons in your life, right? So just like when you have a new practice, it's like a new child. And then the things that you can do as your children get older, you know, they just shift.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, you know, you were inspired at an early age with chiropractic, having had that experience with wrestling. What keeps you so inspired 20 years later?
Man, just seeing the impact that we can have with people. I mean, the everyday miracles that are happening, and even the silent miracles. Docs get frustrated and bored in practice because they didn't have the patient jump off the table and scream that they're healed and ring the bell and, you know, get excited. But just really understanding and knowing our principles and how the body responds and adapts and grows and changes and stays well with what we do. How can you not be inspired? Because every day that we go to the office, we have an opportunity to change somebody's life. And so just keeping that, you know, at your core values will keep you motivated to want to continue to stay in the office.
I love that you keep talking about values, because that's something that I think some doctors overlook. They never start their practice getting a really solid sense of what their business values or their personal values.
Yeah. I remember I hired Ron Oberstein 6 months before I opened. You know, it was a painful day. I went to a seminar. I think the seminar was actually in February down in San Francisco, met Ron and said, hey, I want to mentor coach with you. He's like, great, go home, send me 12 post-dated checks for $750. Here I am just out of school. My wife's made 20 grand teaching. She's like, are you nuts? And was the best decision I ever made. And one of the first exercises he had me do was literally map out my vision for the practice before I signed the lease. Like, what does it look like? What does it smell like? What does the music sound like? How many rooms, the color, I mean, just the whole thing. And then boom, open up, and that starts to come to fruition just because it was forecasted before it even happened.
So you touched on a couple of things there. Obviously, like the value of mentorship and coaching.
Have to.
Yeah. And how did you, you know, in all years of practice, you must have other great resources and things that you can share with our listeners, things that have kept you inspired. You know, you spoke about just, you know, working with Dr. Oberstein. Were there other mentors or leaders or programs that you're part of that you thought were really valuable?
Yeah, you know, I transitioned. So, you know, like in life, certain people take you, you know, like that CA that we talked about that, you know, might plateau. It was, you know, same thing with Ron, still love him today. And still part of who I'm as a chiropractor is because of him. But I got to that point where I was at a certain practice level and I was like, that's not where my heart's at. I need to go, I need to do more. And so I found at the time it was Body by God, and started working with Ben and Greg. And I worked with them and they took me to the next level of what was my practice goal, and then worked simultaneously with Rob Schiffman and them both when they were doing two separate things. And then at that point, a buddy of mine and I decided that we needed to start serving chiropractors for that. And that's when we started a mentorship coaching program at that time. So.
Yeah, I love that what you said. I mean, sometimes what you need at any given time shifts with your practice changing. And if you're not taking that step back and evaluating where you at right now with your family life, with your clinical goals, with your volume goals, that
Yep.
you need the right people around you.
Yeah.
So for you, with all these things that you have going on, and you mentioned at the beginning something new, like a new acquisition, you have something new that you want to share?
Yeah, we it's public now. So we got acquired by a private equity group that's working with Chiro One, and so I'm actually now a practice development coach for them on the West Coast, or in Washington specifically, and hasn't ever happened in chiropractic. So it was exciting, and looking forward to help grow 20, 30 offices on the West Coast for them. So
fantastic. Yeah. And this whole time, you're 20 years in practice, running all these practices. You've loving the long-term relationship. So what are your secrets there? You don't work together.
No,
She's a teacher.
Well, she does all of the behind the scenes books and payroll organization, all the stuff that we don't see happen in a practice. I did that for a lot of years. And then as our kids have gotten older, that transitioned over to her, which again, freed me up. I wasn't something I enjoyed. It was something that I did. So, right. But having fun and spending, part of work and part of business is part of what we do every day. So that's in conversation every day. But again, setting those boundaries, like, hey, let's just go take a bath and not talk about it. Let's, just chill and hang out, or let's go for a walk and not talk about it. And it's just, again, setting those boundaries and being spontaneous and having fun together.
Yeah. So what are some other things that Dr. Paul likes to do for fun? When you're not living your own rockstar doctor life, when you're not in business mode? Yeah,
make the time to golf. Really, it's family. And then the one activity is working out. And then I would say second behind that is golf. So really it's family golf, or family exercise golf, I guess, are my outlets.
It's not a bad list there.
Yeah.
So tell me more about ChiroFest and how you started it, back in 2011 and.
Yeah. So that same passion, Melissa, for our community and them understanding chiropractic. It was, again, I knew that I knew without knowing what it was, when I was inspired to be a chiropractor, that I would serve chiropractic. And that's why I've coached and mentored. And that's why ChiroFest started. It was helping keep the chiropractor inspired and going into practice every day being the best they can be. And so we all get beat up every single day, right? And we need to attend events like CalJam and ChiroFest and Focus and whatnot to inspire ourselves, see what's new, get around like-minded people to sharpen our own iron so that we can go back to our communities and take the hits and the blows that we get from, the non-chiropractic believers, if there is such a thing, right? And so it was really my passion to help chiropractors and to help chiropractic, because I feel like if, I always ask docs on a mentor, I'm like, if you were the last chiropractor on the planet, would chiropractic survive? And that's really the premise of ChiroFest, is to keep docs inspired so that, as our fallen soldiers, right, as we lose our previous warriors, that other warriors are being, grown up and step up and rise up and continue to support who we are and what we do.
So what can people expect when they come to a ChiroFest event?
ChiroFest is really, I don't want to say intimate in the sense it's small, but it's intimate that we're just family. So the way we have the exhibitors set up, it's all, we're all in one giant exhibit hall. I just have a great tribe. We've had 600-ish people the last 3 to 4 years. They come back every year. No, they come back every year. I don't know. It just has a different family community feel than some others. Parker is on a revival and it's great, but it's giant and really doesn't have that intimacy. CalJam has its own tribe and Bill's awesome. Been to that almost every year. He's part of why, I asked Bill, I'm coming up year 9 or whatever. I asked him before I started it. I'm like, hey man, let's do a CalJam North 6 months apart from your event, and I'll help organize it and run it. And he's like, no, go do your own thing, Paul. And boom. So here's ChiroFest.
Nice.
But yeah, so it's similar, but different than CalJam, just because I'm not Bill and Bill's not myself.
Yeah.
So different vibe, different energy, but yeah, so it's just, we just have an amazing tribe. And so it's just fun.
Yeah. I mean, and that touches on something else too. I mean, being yourself, right? I mean, how important do you think that is for docs in practice?
Oh, 100%. Our practices are a direct reflection of our life. And so the more organized and satisfied we are personally, the more our practice is going to thrive. So the more that you do, constant personal development, maintaining who you are, your integrity, your values, keeping your own mind and heart and body and spirit sharp, the better your practice is going to be. And when we get off track and we try and become whomever, you're not going to thrive. You might survive, but you're just not going to thrive, and not going to have that internal piece of like, I'm really doing what I was meant to do.
And do you have some habits that have really become ingrained in you that help you stay in that mindset of thriving and not just surviving, or things that have helped you really, particularly if you've had some challenges in your practice or personal life?
Yeah, there's always challenges. I was just talking to my wife this morning about course correcting, but I think my habits, I'm a morning guy. And so getting up and having your routine of, it's funny. My habit is I get up, go to our pantry, turn the coffee machine on, get down, do my quiet times. Coffee's done, go, get through a book, and then head to the gym. And so just having that consistent routine, I think routine is boring, but routine begets success. And so people, we have to have those routines.
Well, you're getting your mind right for the whole day.
100%. And I'm always praying and visualizing, seeing our people come to the practice before they come into practice, whatever the number might be for you, the new patients. That's a brilliant thing, is helping your team. And now I'm starting to see that culture. And now I step back and mentoring more, is my docs and CAs seeing like when they really start thinking about our people, like if they haven't been in a while, they start showing up. And so them seeing the power of the universe and just people that we're all innately connected, and then coming in. So, but challenges come up. We can't, if you're, I've always been of the belief, if you're doing the right things, you're going to get challenges, and you should get challenged, especially in practice. If you're telling the truth, telling the story, you're going to have conflict. And if you're not, then you're being passive and not sticking true to your values and who you are. But being self-aware enough to course correct when there's a challenge, and we all have to course correct. I try and share with people, like, be rigid in who you are, but be flexible enough to not break, and be able to bend and mold and be adaptable to change. Because you have to change. Like, life is continuously changing, and you don't know what's going to happen a second from now. So being able to be flexible and adapt and respond, but then knowing again your values and sticking to that core.
And I was going to ask you, so then what would you say to docs? If doctor listening right now is dealing with a challenge and they need to course correct, but they're feeling stuck or they're feeling uninspired, they need some support. Like, what piece of advice would you give them at this moment?
Man, go back to their anchor, like why they're doing what they're doing. And that will help them reset and refocus, and then recharge on pushing through whatever that is. Because no matter what the challenge is, like if you, again, stick to your anchor of why you're doing what you're doing, you can adapt to that challenge and look at it as an opportunity to either influence that person, change them, change yourself, right? Maybe there's something that you've had your own scotoma or blind spot that you haven't seen, and that's helping you step back and go, wow, maybe I should have thought about that different and apply that to my life different than I had. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just at CalJam myself. So we're recording this in February, everyone. And we didn't get to connect in CalJam, which I'm kind of sad about, but I was there at the beach the next day, and I'm watching the waves, and I did a video about this, thinking, that's what life is like, right? I mean, the waves come in and then it's calm.
Yep.
And some days you're down at the beach or the ocean, whatever body of water, and it's stormy and it's choppy, but you know what? Usually then that calms. And I think we forget that sometimes. If you're in the middle of a storm in your life, practice, relationships, health, whatever it might be, kids, there's going to be a calm, right?
That season will pass. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's going to pass. And if you can just surround yourself with the right people and, a self-belief, and again, know who you are.
And you're 100% correct with that right there. So it's awesome you brought that up, because I teach that all the time, is like, be careful who you surround yourself with, because your tribe is your support cast. And you're going to, those people of influence, whether it's mom, dad, cousin, brother, coworker, like, you have to have people in your community that support you, who you are and what you believe in, no matter what. And even if it's painful to release some of those relationships, you have to, because they're really not there for you. So that's critical.
Yeah. And so, with you and your experience with the doctors that you've worked with in a, coaching relationship you've worked with in your practices that are even just connected to you as participants at your ChiroFest, what have you observed as a consistent challenge among docs?
Honestly, it goes back to new patients and finances. No matter who I talk to, right? It's a new patient and collection problem, and which is again a reflection of their purpose and their passion. Because if they were on point and beyond passionate about the gifts that they have for the community, there wouldn't be a lack of new patients. So when you're telling the story each and every day and you're living it, so that's the other thing, is if there's incongruencies with them, they're teaching and preaching and then not, adapting and applying themselves. That's an incongruency, and your practice will struggle. People will sense it. so yeah, so if they're, they need to get re-dipped in who they are and why they do what they do. Time after time, I get testimonials. People come to ChiroFest, dude, doc, it just helped me get my passion back. My practice doubled within a couple of months of being there. So it's just really getting re-dipped in who we are and doing whatever you can on a regular basis to keep that fire burning, because that's the attractive factor. That's why, that's when new patients start showing up without knowing why they're supposed to be there. So just keeping that fire alive.
And so if you were to talk about, the success in your practice and what has been a big contributor to growth, clearly that's one piece of it, but do you have other specific strategies that have helped you grow your practices?
You have, processes. You have to have a process, a system and a process. If you don't have a system and a process, which are things I've taken from Ron, from Ben and Greg, from CJ, from every mentor I've ever had in my life, and take those processes and create your processes and stick to those. Because if you don't have a process for your front desk CA, for your billing CA, for your associate doc, whomever, there's going to be a breakdown. And that comes back again to transparency. So when there's openness and candidness about who we are and our process and how we do things, the team can flow and grow. And if there's not, you're going to run into walls, and then there's conflict, and then there's people getting upset, and everything breaks down.
And so if you were to share one thing that has been a secret to your success, but I mean, your definition of success, how does Dr. Paul define success today? And then your next part of the question is going to be, how did you define it 20 years ago? Because I want to know if that has shifted for you as you've gained experience and family changes.
Yeah, it changes every day. Unfortunately, chiropractors put success on numbers, right? It's just this problem we've had ingrained from us since day one. So early in practice, that was my I want to strive to see X amount of people in practice. And that was, and it was to be honest, when I started working with my second mentor and I hit that pinnacle of chiropractic, or supposed pinnacle of chiropractic, it was a huge letdown. Because it's really, it was just, to be honest, it was just a huge letdown. And granted, it was, yes, I've been there, done that, but what's next? And so
you're not the first doctor that shared that with me.
What's that?
You're not the first doctor that's run a really high volume practice that has said that. It's like, okay, well now, not that it's a letdown, it's like, okay, now what? And is it as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be? Does it change your day-to-day experience?
Yeah. So I think early on success, even pre-opening business, was hey, I want to hit those numbers in services collections and patient visits. That's what it was. I can honestly, Heidi and I mapped out, here's our house, here's what life looks like. We had all of that mapped out. So as we've hit those benchmarks along the way, it really wasn't we never expected it not to happen. Even with the thing we just went through, 10 years ago, a buddy of mine that is in a completely different business that I hang out with went through that. And he's like, hey, I know it hasn't happened in your profession, but it happens in dental and it happens in PT. What if? And I'm like, yeah, what if? So, that was put on the board, hey, that might be an exit opportunity So, but today's success, I think, is, for me, it's reach. So I'm working on a men's Christian mentoring program. And so I think today my goal and vision and success is to be able to help more men have more balance and success in their lives. I think a lot of guys have failing marriages, failing health, businesses, whatever you want to, they lost identities. And so I'm working with, Ed on creating and developing that so that I can reach more people, just to help more people. Yeah.
So it's almost like it comes back down to your anchor and your why, right? And you chase things. And it's making me think too about the whole idea of oftentimes we think that the pot of gold, right? That reward is going to be what's worth it, but really it's the journey to it. That is the purpose and the joy. I was just yesterday with my trainer and he was having me do something. I'm looking at him what's the purpose of this? I'm thinking, is there a certain number of reps? I'm going to get stronger. And he's like, no, and I said, or is it just because it was something new, right? So I'm trying to figure it out. And he knows I was getting frustrated. He's like, the whole process of you trying to figure out this new movement is your learning, right? It's the whole training. And I'm like, and I thought about it's like practice. It's the journey of discovering who you are and refining your systems and meeting new people and becoming better as a doctor. That's life's journey and joy, rather than just, if you're always just chasing something, you forget to be present where you are.
Yep. Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. That's super great.
I like the Matthew McConaughey, his Grammy speech, forever ago, that he says he's always chasing himself. I'm chasing my future self. And that's really, kind kind of what I think I'm always doing. Like it's not anybody other than I'm just constantly trying to improve myself and chase my future self. So.
And I would just keep, redefining and evaluating who you are. And that's why it's been great to have you on the show, because a big mission with this show for me and the docs that I've worked with is helping, everyone remember, like, you really can create the kind of life and practice that you want within chiropractic. If you want a big practice, go for it. If you want a small practice, if you want something in between, if you want to do locums, if you want to speak, teach, research, like,
I know
you can do it. And I think a lot of docs forget that.
Wide open. We're having that conversation with my kids. My son's considering it. My daughter thinks about it, but it's like, it's a great opportunity for you to, if you're passionate about it, create the life that you want. You can work 3 days a week if you want. You can work 7. When I first got out, Ron's like, when you tell your people when they start care, you want to see them daily, you meet them daily. I'm like, all right, so I'll meet you here at 11 after church, on Sunday. So I'd see them daily for 2 weeks, like 14 days in a row. So yeah, you can really create what you want. If you want to do something, like you said, some mentoring on the side, and use what you've been blessed with to help others. So it's,
As long as you're clear, having said that, as long as you're clear on what you want and you're not chasing someone else's definition of what you should want. So create your own definition of success. So this has been really, really great to finally chat with you. I know there's been a ton of value here in this conversation for everyone. And listeners, I will definitely put in, links to Dr. Paul Reed, the Chiro Fest for sure. I'll also throw in links to my interview with Dr. Ben Lerner, because that was really fun. And I will also put in a link to the values exercise, because that is by far, even in our simple practice program, it's amazing to me how docs who've been in practice for 10 years, 15 years even, have forgotten to do this step. And so it's so powerful that I'll drop in the free link there for you to download those forms. And any last thoughts for chiropractors listening, Paul?
No, I just appreciate you making the time to have me on. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC, and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.